Welcome to the Change Revolution podcast with your host, Phil Cooke.
I'm coming to you this week from Nashville, Tennessee. We're at GMA Week, which is the Gospel Music Association's week of seminars and workshops. It all leads up to the Dove Awards at the end of the week, and I'm here to talk about personal branding. They asked me to come and talk about how to distinguish yourself, how to get noticed in a media-driven culture. I've taught personal branding to movie producers and screenwriters and executives and directors in LA, in the Hollywood world, and now I'm here in Nashville talking to the music industry about the same thing. Personal branding is really, what do people think of when they think of you? It's a story that surrounds a product or a company or a person. Nike has a brand, Apple has a brand, different products have a brand, and even people have a brand. Oprah's got a very tight brand. I did a commercial recently, and I wanted a shot of Oprah in it, and I discovered how carefully she protects her brand when I was trying to get a photograph of her to use in our commercial. Very hard to get, very expensive because she's very careful about her brand. So I'm here talking to musicians and music executives and producers and recording people about personal branding. And so the things to think about when you talk about personal branding, focus on the fact that we live in a media-driven culture. A few years ago, this personal branding thing wouldn't have mattered so much. But today, in a swirl of media messages out there, some researchers indicate we're getting as many as 3,000 a day. In fact, the Census Bureau reports that next year, your average teenager will see TV, surf the web, listen to their iPod 5.5 months of the year. That's the amount of media we take in all the time. So in that swirl of messages, how do you get noticed? So what I'm talking about today are three important things. One is, in a media-driven culture, visibility is just as important as ability. There are really talented people out there, musicians, singers, preachers, executives, producers, writers, but nobody's ever going to notice them because they're not visible, they're not seen. So in a media-driven culture, it's important that you get your name out there, that you go out and network, that you schmooze, that you meet people, that you get your name known as much as possible. Visibility is just as important as ability. You know that because you know there are musicians, there are producers, there are TV guys. There's all kind of people out there that are hacks. They have no talent at all, not a shred of talent, but they get noticed, they get seen because they know how to market themselves. Somebody met David Hasselhoff from Baywatch the other day and said, you know, David doesn't really have a shred of talent, but he knows how to market himself well. That's the key. Visibility is just as important as ability. The other thing to think about is you can't brand a lie. However you brand yourself, it's got to be legit. It's got to be true. Sooner or later, the audience is going to find out. If you're branding yourself as a suspense thriller director of movies, for instance, you got to be able to come through on that. If you're branding yourself as a writer of comic novels, you got to be able to come through on that. Don't try to make yourself something in your personal branding that you're not, because sooner or later, you got to come up with the goods, and people are going to know about it. So it's incredibly important that you realize you cannot brand a lie. I see people all the time, pastors and writers and singers and musicians and directors who want to be somebody they're really not. And so they try to create this brand, this story about themselves, about something they really aren't. So the fact is, it's going to find you out. Sooner or later, it will find you out. You cannot brand a lie. And the third thing you need to think about in personal branding is being different is everything. Being different is absolutely everything. There's a lot of people out there that do what you do. You may be a singer, you may be an executive, you may be a producer, whatever you are, there's a lot of other people doing what you do. So the key becomes, how do you become different? How do you stand out from the crowd? And if you start thinking about the ways, here's a great example. I got my PhD, and when I got my PhD, I had to write a dissertation. Dissertation is a 300 or 400 page paper that sums up your doctoral work. And what they want you to do at that level is write a paper about a really incredibly small niche. They wanted me to know more and more about less and less until apparently I'm supposed to know everything there is to know about nothing, which is pretty easy for me. And but the idea is you niche. You may not be the best singer out there, but maybe you could be the best singer in a certain type of niche. You may not be the best writer out there, but maybe you could be the best writer in a certain type of niche. It's all about the niche. Find that small area, that tiny marketplace. See, in a media culture, in a media-driven culture, it's all about that niche. Being the best you can be at one very specific area. So think about the niche because it's all about being different. And if that niche can help you be different, That's the important thing. When I was young, I was a producer, and I wanted to direct a lot of different stuff. But I realized early in my career, I had the opportunity to direct a lot of stuff overseas. I've shot programming in about 40 countries around the world. And after you shoot in some pretty horrible places, I've been to the headwaters of the Amazon, I've traveled with the Bedouins in the Middle East, I've been caught up in 2 military coups in Africa. I've been to some pretty hardcore places. And early in my career, I realized I could develop a niche of being the overseas guy. I could be a director that specializes in shooting overseas. And so I wrote magazine articles about it. I would speak at conferences about it. And every opportunity I could get to share my knowledge and my experience, I would do it. So I learned early on that niche could be my ticket out. And sure enough, I got to be really well known in that niche. And then I grew out of that niche and got bigger and bigger and bigger. So that's a real key. Start in a place where you could potentially be the best in the world. And when you grow out of that, then your career really takes off. So that's kind of some of the things I'm talking about this week at GMA Week here in Nashville on personal branding. I'll be podcasting more in upcoming weeks and months on branding because I think it's important to understand the power of an effective personal brand. Just like Nike, just like Starbucks, just like Adidas, all these companies have very effective branding for their companies. You can have a very effective brand for you.
Join us for more of this conversation at Phil's Change Revolution blog at philcooke.com. That's PHILCOOKE.com. And keep checking this podcast for more up-to-date dispatches from the front lines of media, faith, and culture.